Hello, everybody. Welcome to RümpChät. It has been quite a time to get this little episode done. We've changed headphones, microphones. I threw a $550 piece of machinery against the wall.
He punched a piece of machinery because it's a piece of shit.
Yeah, we're at Rob. Let's get into it right now. Rump, introduce our honored guest today.
Our guest today on RümpChät. We have a lot of bullfighting fans that listen to RümpChät, as we are big. Me and you, even though we are not bullfighters currently, we are huge fans of bullfighting, as you have ran the music and helped get the BFO to Las Vegas. I have been a bullfighter years past. I fought bulls once with Rob back in the day, but I love bullfighting.
I got to get that story.
I love bullfighting, and I've been able to help in the fighting bull department through Flying U Rodeo with Reno, and so it's been a passion of mine for a long time. And today on the show is one of my heroes. And if you look at my face paint to this day, I have the shooting stars on my cheeks, and that is in tribute to our guest today. And we hate the term GOAT.
Yeah.
Oh, he's the GOAT. This guy's the GOAT. There's so many guys out, but Rob Smets is one of the best bullfighters in the history of the sport. And I'm glad to call my friend, and I'm glad that he stuck with us when all of our stuff crashed. But yet here we are. Yeah. Finally got the 5-time world champion bullfighter and PBR bullfighter. Rob Smets is finally with us. Rob Smets, everybody.
Mr. Rob.
How's it going, guys?
Man,
glad we were able to make it work. Glad we were able to make it work. I apologize that, part of it was that my Wi-Fi at home wasn't any good. So I ran over here to my son-in-law and daughter's place over on the other side of Stephenville, and Scott and Dylan have got good Wi-Fi. So hopefully we can get through this show.
And the funny thing is, we just worked for Scott at Corpus Christi 2 weeks ago. So, Scott, hey.
Thanks to the Davises. But Rob, it's awesome. I mean, and another thing that we don't like, you get on Facebook, social media, people, man, they just throw around the word legend too easily. Man, you're a legend. Easy, back off. Well, what have you really done? And in my opinion,
yes, sir.
A guy like you, to us who grew up watching you, I mean, the shirts, necktie, and I mean, and the in the PBR where you were the first guy to get mic'd up, and they could actually hear you, way to go, Adriano, or whatever, you would talk to them guys. That was, I mean, that's what I think of, that it's pretty awesome.
And so I want to start off with this, Rob. I know you've been asked.
I was also, just to add something in there, I was the first one to wear the jersey.
I remember that. But I don't want to go there right now, Rob. Okay. This is not RümpChät. This is RümpChät. And I know you've had to tell a story 1,000 times, but this is like a no bullshit podcast where we want the real story. And I've heard a little bit about, back in the day, you started with some of the same people I did with the Flying U, California.
Right.
So,
okay. Cotton Roster helped me get my start.
So take us back. I want to go down the. I want to go through the timeline. I want you to start from Rob Smets, and I don't want your cookie cutter answer.
No.
I don't want to, blah, blah, blah. I want the real stuff. And we're going to bail in on you here. But, take us back through the first days of Rob Smets, and then I'm going to bail in about the late 80s bullfighting, okay? So, Rob talks about how the kamikaze kid, do you ever look back the old videos and say, son of a bitch, that was me?
Yeah, there was a picture that posted just the other day on Facebook, and it was me jumping 153 at the National Finals Rodeo back in Oklahoma City in 1983, the year that I won my first world title. And the barrel had rolled back. You can see it's still a long ways to get to the bull. And fortunately, 153 came on, and I was able to get a foot on him and go on over him. And that was the night that I won my very first world title, and the year that I worked my first NFR and won my first world. I worked with Rex Dunn, the 1983 National Finals Rodeo, and then ended up winning the world that year after Miles had stopped me from going home in May of that year. I was so tired of winning second to Miles Hare that we were in Fort Smith, Arkansas, which is coming up. It actually starts on next week.
I'll be there.
Usually Fort Smith is this weekend. It was always on Memorial Weekend. And Miles had beat me for 3 rounds, and we were sitting up drinking cold beer and visiting, you know, and I sat there and I looked at him and I said, you know what? I'm done. I'm going home. I've had enough. I'm tired of winning second to you. And Miles looked over at me and he goes, no. He goes, quit trying all the crazy shit and get back to the fundamentals and do what you do. And I won the next night. We went back there to Fort Smith, and I won the last round there. I ended up winning the next 5 bullfights in a row and won my first world in '83. You said, let's go back.
I'm going to go back to the very, very first.
And to go back, we would be going back to Bellotto Park, Hollister, California. I had, as a kid, I lived overseas. My dad did heavy construction work. We lived in Thailand for 3 years. I lived in Australia for 3 years. We lived in Puerto Rico a year. I lived in Singapore almost a year. I got interested in rodeo, got on my first couple calves as a kid in Australia, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Came back home. The rodeo bug kind of bit me, you know, where I wanted to get on, and started going to junior rodeos in California there, Livermore Junior Rodeo, Martinez, Hayward Junior Rodeo, all around there. And was sitting on the fence one day right at the end of my sophomore year, and Donnie Landis's dad used to come to those events. Donnie was fighting bulls a little bit with a guy named Stubby Gomes, Frank Gomes. And I got done riding, and I was sitting on the fence, and I kept hollering at him, get up there, hit him on the head. And they said,
we do that.
You know, you think it's so easy, get your ass off the fence and show us. And not that I did anything fantastic, but, you know, in Australia, I had also started boxing. I boxed in the police athletic league. So I played rugby, I played football, I boxed. Contact sports, I'm all right with that. You want to, you know, hit me, I'll take one to get one. I'm all for that. And, so it was the wildest game of tag I'd ever played. And man, my old heart went to pounding, and it was pretty dang cool. And like I said, not that I did anything fantastic, but man, a couple of near misses, and it was just like, wow, this is cool. The next year, Frank Gomes started working bigger and better events for Danny Russell, more of their bigger amateur rodeos, and it opened a spot in our high school rodeos. Well, Donnie Landis and I were buddies anyway, and Donnie's dad would come and kind of say, well, you need to try this and you need to try that. And so Bill would kind of coach me in a way, and I went at it. And so my junior and senior year, I worked our high school rodeos there in District 4. And guys like Teddy Noose from District 5, and Marty Stannard and Joe Foscolina and Kirk Allman, and, you know, all guys that I high school rodeoed with, and all guys that let me learn the trade right there practicing on them.
Did you ever get to fight bulls back in the day with Ted Groney?
I thought Ted Groney, yes. I was before Ted Groney.
Okay.
Ted Groney come to one of my bullfighting schools.
I did not know that. I wasn't for sure how that worked out, but, you know, Ted were.
So did Joe Baumgartner. So did Weston Ratowski. So did Cody Emerson.
Who are those guys? I don't.
Well, Emerson and Ratowski would both be guys that are world champ. Jerry Norton.
Yeah,
now,
we just saw
Jerry. Yeah, absolutely.
Ratowski and Emerson, they both came to Rob Smets, Miles Hare bullfighting schools.
Okay, so you get done fighting at the high school rodeos, and where do you go from there? High school rodeos are over. How did you get your card? Let's get into that part.
So as the high school rodeos ended, I also bulldogged back in high school, much like Mr. Rumford. So Jack Roddy who was a
Yep.
former
I know
president, Jack Roddy, former president of the PRCA. He also helped with the San Jose Firefighters Rodeo. Chuck Henson and Jerry Mariluch were working the rodeo. He got us to where we could go work one performance with Chuck Henson and Mariluch at San Jose Firefighters for them to sign our pro cards. San Jose was always the last week of September. So I had graduated in June. I was still 17 years old all the way till September 11 is my birthday. So 2 weeks after I turned 18 years old, I got to go in front of Chuck Henson and Jerry Mariluch. They approved us for our card, both me and Donnie, on the same day. And then come January 1, we bought our cards in 1978 and went about it. I worked a bunch of Bob Cook's rodeos. Bobby Cook, who is Bob's daughter, works for Western Horseman. Lake Comanche was the very first rodeo I showed up at for Bob Cook. And on the day, I remember being excited about that Chuck Henson and Mariluch said they were going to sign for our card. And I ran over to Bob Cook to shake his hand and say, thanks very much. I was just all pumped, Bob Cook shook my hand and he said, don't know why you're thanking me. It wasn't my damn idea to let you in the arena. It was Jack Roddy's, but it was Roddy, Sparrock, and Cook. That's what RSC was. And so, rodeo. Yeah. So anyway, that happened. I showed up at Lake Comanche, California, April of the next year. And there was a guy from Texas, long hair down on his shoulders. And I had seen him before at the Northern Rodeo Association finals in Billings, Montana. And I watched him fight two bulls under spotlight at the NRA finals. And I was like, this dude is badass right here. And it was Brian McNair. And so I land at Lake Comanche, California, and who's the guy that's there but the old boy that flips his old hair over his shoulders? And, them girls used to line up. McNair, he'd stand there with his old thumbs in his pockets, and he's 6-footer, and weighed maybe 180 pounds, and that long brown hair. And he'd come out there to California with that Texas drawl. Them girls were lined up from here to the other end of the arena, waiting to see who could talk to him, He'd flick that old hair and kind of nod, and away he'd sneak off, he'd be gone with another. and so, and I got to fight bulls with him though, and like I said, he was a badass. He could step through. He was an athlete. He jumped bulls and was really good. And to not be embarrassed, you had to hook up, And so I worked some with him, and he showed me a few things, and then I also had some of Cotton Rosser's run out there on the West Coast, and Cotton had as good a run as anybody could ever want to be on, and I worked all those West Coast rodeos for him. And then that year, actually, let me back up just a little bit. 1977, right after I get my pro card signed for, we sneak into the Cow Palace on the final night of the Cow Palace. We'd snuck in other nights, but the final night of the Cow Palace, 1977. Donnie Gay rides Oscar, and Wick Peth wins the very first bullfighting contest that Cotton Rosser put on with the Cow Palace. Now, knowing that the Cow Palace back in that era was the rodeo.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
That's where dreams were made or dreams were lost right there, because that was the final rodeo of the year that counted toward the NFR. So that bar that was on the corner of the Cow Palace, there was a lot of guys celebrating, and there was a lot of guys drinking their sorrows away because the NFR had just gotten lost right there. So I can remember watching Wick fight bulls, and my buddy Richard Caton and I were down there in the moat, and Nev Devine, and we were all down in there, and I bumped both my buddies, and I said, I'm coming here next year. I'm going to be in this bullfight. I got to win this bullfight. This is it. And like I said, it was back in the time when I was boxing too. So I was running 8-9 miles a day. I was in shape. And I just assumed fight a bull is fight a man, or fight a man is fight a bull. It didn't really matter what order it was in. That was and now that I look back, though, it's an unfortunate chip that I had on my shoulder, because rather than try to talk things out or just get out of things, my dad's rules were I was never allowed to throw the first punch, but I never had any trouble getting somebody to swing.
That's good.
I can see that. I can see
what I mean? I could say enough to get him to swing, and then Dad say, "You throw the first." No, sir. He swung.
So how did you get there the next year then? So what were the
working all the Cotton's rodeos and stuff? It was kind of an invite. You paid an entry fee. We all paid an entry fee, and there was me, there was Bob Romer, there was Miles Hare, there was
bull dancer.
There was Bob Donaldson.
Wow.
There was Jerry Mariluch. There was Wick Peth. There was 60 Greg Doring. I can't remember all that were in there, but there were 16 of us. So two every purse.
Yeah, it's just hearing these names, and maybe a lot of our listeners now maybe not privy to the lineage of bullfighters, but I mean, obviously growing up in a rodeo family like Rump, all those names. I mean, how many Hall of Famers did you just name? I mean, you literally walked with legends.
Dale Woodard was in there too, because Dale was still fighting bulls a bunch too then. So it was, and it was unlike, it was not like the Wrangler bullfights. You didn't just draw a bull and you had your 90 seconds to fight him. This was, you work the perf. You and me, Rump, we're going to go out there and work the perf, and you cut each other off. You do what else, but it's a free for all bullfight from start to finish. And wow. each of us got a bull. We each got our fighting bull too. But the bucking bulls, they judge. If a bucking bull would hook up, you fought the bucking bulls too. And so the more wild it was, the better they liked it.
Well, and honestly, if you think about the guys you listed off, you kind of bridge the gap between the first generation of Wrangler bullfights, and then you fought bulls clear through the 90s, and so you were around as a young guy, the older guys, yeah, and then you got to bridge the gap between the old school and the new school, all in one career, which I think that is amazing, because I can't remember a lot of those guys fighting bulls, but I do know the name, the bull dancer and Wick Peth, and I got to hang out with Skipper Voss this year at Fort Worth at the BFO finals, and so the names that you got to as a young man that were on their way out, that you got to be around, it's just amazing to think in your career you were at the first and the last, but you weren't worn out at the end. But you were in both spots, and I think in your career that's one pretty cool point.
I was really blessed, because after that day, or after the Cow Palace, now I won the first go round. Bob Donaldson won the next go round. So Donaldson was a Wick Peth protege. And, that Wick had taken him under his sleeve. And so Mariluch had signed my card. And I can, like I said, I'm 18 and a half. I just barely had turned 19 years old when I'm at the Cow Palace that year. And Wick turns around to Jerry Mariluch and he says, "I'll bet my check against your check my man beats your man." Huh? It's just like us doing this show right here. I'm standing right here. I mean, Wick makes this challenge right there to Mariluch. I'm standing right there. It's like he slapped me right in the face. And I'm like, Mariluch looks at me. I said, "Take the damn bet." I was all fired up.
Is that when you had the little straw hat and the big mustache?
I had my little one, little snap brim, and I said, "Take the bet." So Mariluch, he takes the bet. And the last night it ends up, it's me and Bob Donaldson. And we're going at it. And, I take one pretty good hook in and get back up and go at him again. And finally, the Cow Palace has a moat around it.
Oh, I've worked the Cow Palace 5
Okay,
times.
so you know the moat and the two cables right there. Well, this
Yeah.
high-headed Bramer runs us both up the fence, and we're 5 feet apart, 6 feet apart from each other, me and Donaldson, and he's got us both up there, and this Bramer's doing us like this, looking at us both. And Donaldson looks at me, and I just waved at him. I said, bye-bye, and I just bail on this over his head and jump on him backwards and grab him by the flank. And I ride him about 2 rounds, and then he rips me out of there, you know. And anyway, we get back and fight a little bit more, and it ends up, and fortunately, I win it. I have to back up a little bit, though. I got a buddy of mine that's passed since then named Jim Rhodes. And Jim Rhodes was an old outlaw. But the one thing about Jim Rhodes, if he was your partner, he was your partner to the end. You didn't ever have to look back over your back. And out there in California, like he worked on Jack Roddy's ranch, on the Bell Ranch, and on those different places out there. And he was a good cowboy, but he was an outlaw. And so the first night that we were walking through the Cow Palace, the year that we're there, Palm Saddlery they gave a saddle away for the U.S. Cowboy Bullfighting Championship. So as we're walking around and we're checking out all the people that have got booths set up and all that, Flanagan's Frontier Store and Palm Saddlery and Palm's
Cowboy Corral, downtown Marysville, California.
Yeah, Cotton's Cowboy Corral was up there too. And so we walked by Palm Saddlery. Well, they got the saddle out there, U.S. Cowboy Bullfighting Champion. And Rhodes goes, jump up in that saddle. We need to set the stirrups. And so I jump. I do. I sit in the saddle. We get our stirrups measured, and we start setting the stirrups. This is before the Cow Palace had even started. And the guy from Palm Saddlery comes around there and goes, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" Rhodes goes, "We're setting the stirrups. We'll be back after this son of a bitch next week." So lo and behold, I do win the deal that night. And as they start to hand me the saddle, Rhodes, he's been at the bar and he's hooping and hollering from up there out of the box seats right above us where they're giving the announcement. And he goes, "We ain't got to set the damn stirrups." You know, and
that's right. That's calling your shot. I love that.
Absolutely.
So it was pretty. It ended up being a really cool night.
But that was before the Wrangler Bullfight started. That was 78. You said.
Well, that was 78. So then after that, they got back over to Rapid City, South Dakota, and Miles and Skipper and Wick. And David Allen from Wrangler.
And Lloyd Ketchum.
And this is before Ketchum.
I know, it's a joke.
And they started, they met with Jim Sutton. They started talking about putting on a bullfight in Rapid City. And Rapid City had that bullfight. They had a bullfight in 1980, and they started working things out. 1981, they crowned the first world champion.
Which was Skipper, right?
Which was Miles.
Oh, Miles, that's right.
Miles won the world. I won second. Skipper won third. 1982, I went in the lead for the world. Skipper won the world. Miles won second. I won third. 1983, I had told you that story. Miles stopped me from going home. And when I won the world, we got back in the locker room and Wick looked over at Miles and said, "Why didn't you let him go home?"
That'd have been easier that way. I mean, if you think about it.
So how old were you when you won your first world title?
1983, I would have been just barely 24.
Wow.
Year
I was born, but no big deal.
And the good part though, prior to that, I worked St. Paul, Oregon with Wick. The day I won the deal at the Cow Palace, I ran over in the moat to Wick Peth and said, Marilich is standing by Wick and said, "Pay up." I was the first person I made a beeline for was Wick Peth. Was you pay up, mister? You bet against me, pay up. And it was almost a year before Wick would talk to me. He
really,
yeah, oh yeah. And then I got picked to work St. Paul, Oregon. Well, St. Paul was Wick's rodeo. First time I ever fought bulls with Wick. And I can remember I was jumping and boy, my breath was getting shorter and shorter, and I was starting to hyperventilate. I'm just thinking I got to keep up with the man, And he walked over and he tapped me on the chest and he said, "Hey, son, you got to breathe." Yes, sir. And from there on out, we became buddies. He taught me how to hop and to stay square, not get my feet crossed. Skipper Voss taught me how to do the step through on a chair in the dressing room in Omaha, Nebraska. Jimmy Anderson. Yeah, Jimmy Anderson taught me.
Jimmy.
Brother Jimmy right there taught me all kinds about partnering and where to be and to staying opposite. And then Miles. So what made Rob Smets was, Donnie Landis' dad spoke into me, McNair, but the four most important would be Miles Hare, Jimmy Anderson, Skipper Voss, and Wick Peth. And wow. I took a little here, a little here, a little there, and a little there, and that's what you got.
And I will tell you this: I'm good friends with Miles to this day, and Miles, for as many miles as he's been, Miles' hair looks good.
Miles Hare will forget more about bullfighting than most guys will ever know.
He judged the high school rodeo in Nebraska a couple years ago. I watched a video. He got hooked more than the bullfighters did judging. Come on, cocky.
Come on, cocky doodle.
Yeah, but okay. So now this is where I really want to bail in kind of the heavier crap, because this is what just blew my mind as a kid, and still to this day. So I've got every bullfight from 1985 on, and so when the NFR gets to Las Vegas, I want you to talk about the days, the Greg Rumor days, Steve Mowry, the wild days of bullfighting, because that's okay. Bullfighters today work out and do push-ups and post it on Instagram, but they're in the 80s. It got a little wild, kind of a little bit behind the scenes, didn't it? Don't bullshit us here, Rob.
I won't bullshit. I'm not going to say names. I will say this.
No.
That Rob Smets, though I was able to hold everything together in the arena, the wheels were falling off the tracks outside the arena.
Right. That was the late 80s, though, was a crazy time for a lot of people.
Well, in that era of guys there, when you think about it and you go back and you look at everything, even in the world, everybody was about trying to be an outlaw. Everybody was about seeing how far you could. Nobody really wanted to get busted, but everybody was about seeing just how far you could step over that line and not get caught.
Right.
Right. And I since then, and with the way things have changed in my life, and having been saved in 98, and there was a long span there that I went through a marriage. I went through, I've wrestled with everything and done everything but stick a needle in my arm. I've been there, done that. You ain't going to show me anything,
Right.
And I'm not, whatever I want to make sure I tell people, though, I'm not saying that pridefully. I made a lot of damn mistakes. And the thing that people have to remember is we want to say, oh, the only person I can hurt in this mess is me. That's bullshit, because we end up hurting a lot of people that never even had a say in it.
Well, and I'm not trying to glorify it, but it was the late 80s was a wild time. So when I talked to, when I first got the NFR, 2014, I was talking to Sean Davis. How he makes everybody come into his office, and I was like, don't worry, we won't be wild. And he said, you guys don't know what wild is. You should have been around here in the 80s with those boys in the Wrangler Bullfights. He said those guys might beat up a security guard, ride in a limo, slam a case of beer before the bullfights. He said those guys were wild, but they were good at what they did.
But they took care of, you know what? And we were wild, and we did step over the line a little bit, but they were good, and we took care of each other. and the security guard was Alan Keller, and I was standing right by Jimmy Anderson when he give Alan Keller all he wanted and give up more than 100 pounds in weight difference between him and Alan Keller damn near. And finally, Keller, being the bigger guy, happened to hit Jimmy just right. Jimmy's head hit that block wall, and down went Jimmy. And when Jimmy hit the floor, and Keller stepped up to give him the boots, I stepped across the top of brother Jimmy and pushed Keller and said, I'm next in line, but you ain't giving nobody the boots.
Well, I think that's what was cool about back in the days of the EFR. You could not get away with that now.
Oh my, you'd be in jail.
You would be kicked out of the finals so fast, you know. Like in those days it was wild. The bulls were big. You look at Purple People Eater, Crooked Nose,
and now all they want to do in the bullfighter room, people come in there and take a shit in the bathroom. That's all they do nowadays.
Yeah.
In the bullfighter locker room.
It's really
you got your ass kicked back in the day if you did that.
Well, and the thing about that group of guys too is if we had words with each other, like, and I've had words, me and Rumor have had words. I've had my share of words in places, but we'll have our words. Don't nobody else say words to us, or or us two are liable to kick your ass. You know what I mean? That whatever differences we got, that's between us. That ain't for you to get in the middle of.
Yeah, you know? And we're gonna get to the big bulls here in a minute, but I just want to ask you a couple questions about different guys and what it was like to rodeo with them. Number one of my heroes who I still miss and cherish and love, and I talk to Tracy and the boys sometimes, but Rex Dunn. Loved Rex. Talk about Rex a little bit.
Rex Dunn, as I mentioned just a little bit ago, 1983, my very first NFR that I get chosen to work, and it was Rob Smets and Rex Dunn. The thing that was so crazy about it was Rex Dunn and Rob Smets had never worked a rodeo together.
Yeah.
Really?
We had never worked a
West Coast in Oklahoma
until we get to Oklahoma City, and now we've got the biggest, best, the biggest show in the world. And here you go, boys. And we were two opposites, on how we fought bulls. So getting used to how each other was going around things, was good. But me and Rex, we had a blast. We worked together well. Rex and I were good buddies. I got all the respect in the world for Rex Dunn. I
always loved Rex. Rex was the first one when I was fighting bulls. I started at the old Coyote Hills. I was skinny back then, and you probably remember that. But Rex said, Justin, he was actually the very first one, even before J.D. Feller. He said, Rex goes, man, as funny as you are, I don't know why you want these big mean things to run you over. Why don't you think about your life a little bit? Okay.
Right.
All right. So that was the Rex Dunn. Number two, gone but not forgotten. Tell us about Greg Rumor. And I got to actually work the barrel for Greg my first year as a rodeo clown at North Platte, Nebraska. So tell us a little bit about Greg.
Greg Rumor was a gamer.
What was he like in the locker room? Because I know how I am in the locker room with Weston and Tuckness and those guys, and we joke around. But what was it like having Greg Rumor in the locker room?
Rumor and I at a point there was we were in Pampa, Texas one year, and Rumor hadn't been beat. Nobody had beat him. And we got to Pampa, and I'd won the first couple of rounds, and Rumor was pretty upset about it, and he, to the point that he was cussing judges. And then pretty soon him and I started having some words back and forth, and we're there on that Saturday night, and Rumor, to the point we're back behind those. Have you ever worked Pampa, Texas?
No, but I was there working for Benny when I was 12.
Okay.
I was probably there.
You know what Pampa's like right there. And the trailer was there, and we're having words back and forth, and pretty soon Rumor and I are both getting pretty loud with each other. And, Rumor had boxed, I had boxed, and we both, we were right on the verge of saying, okay, let's do this, And here come Benny with Big Dorenkamp from around the corner.
Jerry, Benny.
we were loud enough that the people in the grandstands were all watching back behind the bucking chicks instead of watching the radio. Yeah, and here come Benny, and Benny was screaming and hollering, Smets, and he was going on. And I said, Benny, the only reason you're mad is you thought you were going to miss it.
That's true.
And Benny just shook his head. Damn you, Smets. And, and needless to say, Rumor and I had never got that far. And later that year, when we got to the NFR, and they used to always set a keg back in the shower there at the NFR.
They don't do that anymore.
And after the last go around there, we sat there and we visited, and the last two guys that were still sitting down in the locker room was me and Rumor pouring each other a cold beer. And in fact, we grabbed the keg and took it to the elevator and brought it up and met everybody up on top at the Wrangler room that was right up, how the Wrangler suite is. And
one of the best openings ever at the NFR, and there's been so many great ones, but this actually just got reposted the other day. Somebody reposted it, but I'll never forget. It was so awesome. They introduce Miles, you, and Skipper and Jim Sutton at the time event in, and then out comes Greg Rumor,
yes, sir,
53-year-old Greg Rumor, and Ted Kimsey's rolling out the barrel. And Greg Rumor fights a bull.
Yep.
And fights him good. For a 53-year-old man,
he
fights him outstanding.
He bounced.
And the thing is, he never wore a vest.
No. Rumor never wore a vest. The guy was an athlete. He was a tremendous athlete. Golden Gloves boxer, played hockey. I mean, the guy was
his
light
nose.
That nose will show you there wasn't no backup in that stuff. You're not gonna spook him. He's one of them guys that he just as soon go down as say, I'm sorry. And
one more quick Greg Rumor story that I saw in North Platte, Nebraska. I was working for Copenhagen at the time, and I was on the back of the chutes, and Hadley was out on horseback announcing. And they fought a bull to sell it, as a Benny Butler rodeo does. And that bull kind of left. Well, Hadley turned his horse to look at the big grandstand on the other side to sell the rodeo. Well, that bull had switched around and came back. And I mean, even he's selling it, but Corley is Hadley, yelling, but that bull got there and hooked that horse, and down goes Hadley. And Hadley's been old since 80, since 1980. Bless his heart. But Greg Rumor was at the chutes, and the next thing you knew, you just saw this red flash, and that bull was doubling back to just do God knows what to Hadley. And Greg Rumor picked that bull up and weaved his way all the way back to the outgate. And that's the first time I've heard of Greg Rumor. I saw, and I was like, oh my God. That was unbelievable.
Greg Rumor was a hard-headed son of a buck, but he's a class act. And I tell you one thing about him: Greg Rumor's all about right's right.
Yep.
Yeah,
there's no touch of gray. It's black or white with Rumor, and he would draw a line in the sand. And you got to respect somebody for that.
Mm-hmm. And it's all he did in the bullfighting. He passed away several years ago from a wreck with a bulldozer. And you think about the risk that you guys have taken as bullfighters, but in the end, when God's ready for you, it don't matter if you're fighting bulls or driving a car. When it's your time, it's your time. And I'll never forget Greg Rumor, and his daughters are beautiful and doing great. And there's kids today through our BFO camps, UBF camps, through all these different camps that watch the Greg Rumor videos. Mm-hmm. DeKevis Jordan, who's a good friend of mine, he at Sykeston, he's in there watching bullfighting videos of Greg Rumor and you guys
and Rob, and I remember that. I saw him,
and he's in there. That was the year, and I'll never forget this. I go into he's got a van. DeKevis does. He's got this van with an air conditioner in the back, and he's in there. And it was the year that you had dyed hair.
Yeah,
you went Slim Shady.
Yeah,
remember that?
Yeah.
And he's in there watching, and so you got a kid who has never met you guys, and he doesn't know you guys, but who can almost physically do a lot of the same stuff because he's watched the video and practiced on calves and some fighting bull cows. So the cool thing, I guess, for Greg and for a lot of you guys is, even though you're done in your bullfighting career, you're not.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
Do you feel like that ever?
Oh yeah, and what's, like I mentioned earlier, where we were popping out, you know, Rutowski and Cody Emerson and guys that have come through our school, Zach Call. There's
Zach Call.
There's a whole bunch of them boys have all come to the Miles Hare, Rob Smets bullfighting school. You know, when guys have been there, Jerry Norton won the world, Rowdy Berry, Doug Ferzani, you know, Ferzani stand there and throw a fake as good as anybody in the business.
That was one of my favorite things. I'm glad you led me into that, because in American Bullfighter, which was my jam growing up, I had it on VHS, and it's got Ferzani and Rob Smets driving around in a single cab Dodge pickup with a sleeper on the back.
Yeah.
And the one scene has got Ferzani getting knocked out in Billings, Montana, and he's laying on his back going, "I rodeo bullfighter, I rodeo bullfighter." I loved Ferzani because
they said, "I rodeo bullfighter." They said, "Where are you at?" And he said, "In the dirt."
Yeah. But Ferzani, I always looked up to Ferzani because me and him were built a lot alike in that we were bigger. But, you know, Ferzani never wore knee braces.
No.
And he was dirty tough. And Ferzani get around a bull, but he'd take a hook in, but it was like a bull trying to hook an oak tree stump. You could not injure Doug Ferzani.
Kind of like you.
Doug came to my bullfighting school in 1986 in Boardman, Oregon, at Jody Tatone's. And I graduated high school, Salinas. Ferzani's from Salinas. You know, we both, Ferzani's like a little brother to me. And I played center. Ferzani played nose guard. We related to each other a whole bunch, and he picked up a lot of it, had a really good fake, and it's all about good misdirection. If you can move them over there, then the rest of it's easy. It's all how you start the fight, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, Ferzani, I really do feel like looking back, he's kind of underrated. When you look at great Wrangler bullfighters, he gets left out of the mix a lot, but he's grouchy on Facebook now, but I will say that Doug.
He's a Byron. He's Byron.
He's like Byron Walker. He likes to talk a lot of crap, but I love him. I love Ferzani, and we've hung out a couple times. We actually were at Ada. He was at Ada pulling shoot gates at Rex's bullfight when I was 19 years old. The night before they had a protection match at Ada at Rex's deal, and then Saturday was the bullfight, and me and Ashton McClellan, who was a tall, skinny guy that helped Bad Company, they called him Stretch, and Ferzani called me and Ashley McClellan together Skinny Legs and Fat Ass, and so that was our name. But we did pretty good. We ended up like 5th out of 6 teams. So
Ferzani speaks nothing. Ferzani speaks nothing but the truth, and them boys out there today don't know what it is to be scared.
Yeah. So, okay, one more bullfighter.
Because they ain't seen that big pin.
Oh, we're going to get to that in just a minute, but there's one more bullfighter that I want to talk about. That also the guy that I'm good friends with his sons. You can't think about the Wrangler Bullfights without Dwayne Hargo, and Dwayne Hargo Jr. is a good. I love him. Aaron Hargo.
Yeah,
I got to know them through the Flying U. Those boys are awesome, but Dwayne Hargo Jr., he's still a cool cat. And we're going to transition from this into the big bulls, because I've got a video at home of Dwayne Hargo.
Yeah, I was like,
fighting,
Dwayne Hargo, not Junior.
Yeah, fighting
getting
purple
cut off by Crooked Nose and thumping his head on the barrel. But
he knocked himself out on the barrel. Yeah, he was. And so, he always seemed pretty cool. And like even Dwayne and Aaron Jr. totally messed up on that. But they those guys are just cool as a cucumber. And while I never got to see the old Dwayne fight bulls, he always seemed like he was just a cool customer. He never seemed too shook up. He just fought bulls. It wasn't nothing crazy, but it wasn't. I mean, he went to every bull. He was just solid as you could be.
Dwayne was really quick, really good on his feet. Could step through one of the prettiest bullfights that you'll ever see. If you can go back and find it, is he fought 6 Blue of Borbas that year at the NFR, to where at one point he's on his hands and knees, kind of making around with him, and just that 6 Blue was just one that would stay with you. And Hargo just hustled his butt off. It was pretty. And Dwayne Hargo's good people. You can't get around anybody any better.
Oh, I do want to ask one more guy, and I wonder this because I know the relationship I have with bullfighters nowadays as a barrel man. You know, like when we get rodeos together, whether it be, well, like sound man or a clown or whatever. But so Ted Kimsey, as a barrel man, he worked every Wrangler bullfight? I'm pretty
NFR,
sure he did.
NFR.
Yeah, every NFR. He was at every one, right?
Yeah. Kimsey's tough.
How much fun was Ted to hang out with back in the day?
Ted Kimsey's a good guy. You know.
Did you ever have to help with clown acts?
Oh yeah, I had to. Yes, I had to help with clown acts.
Did you like it? Did you like it?
No, I mean, because I never felt comfortable with comedy. So, you know, it was, but if I'm going to get there, Rumford, you come up to me and say, Smets, I need help. I'm going to go do what I got to do.
You heard him. You heard
right there.
We got the motorcycle act.
Well, that's the nature of that's the part of the game. You know, that's what I got to do. That's what I got to do. But as far as for me to go tell the committee that, hey, San Antonio, I want your rodeo and I'll make them some bucks laugh. Better for me to go to San Antonio and say, you know what? You just keep turning one out every night. I won't tear your fences down because I will be in the middle of the pen.
Well, you know, there are some in this day and age. There's a lot of good guys. Evan Allard loves clown acts.
Yeah,
loves them. He'll be in them. But there's a lot of the new generation of bullfighters that do not want to help. They don't want to help rodeo clowns, but like Cody Webster will. He loves it.
Yep.
Tuckness, he don't have a choice, you know, because
Yeah.
I'll make him or I'll beat the crap out of him. But those guys actually work out pretty good. But
Weston helps.
Who?
Weston.
Oh yeah, Weston. Weston loves.
I don't know anymore. I think with guys with you though, they're your buddies, and so they're going to help you out. You know, if it's, I don't know, some guy in, you know, I don't know, Brainerd, Minnesota. I don't know.
Yeah, the one guy
might have a little.
There was a guy in Nebraska at an amateur rodeo I worked a few years ago. I said, I need your help for this clown act. He said, Mister, I'm serious about my bullfighting, and I don't want to get lumped in to the rodeo clown aspect of it, so I'm not going to help you with your act.
Really?
I said, well, do you have? Yeah. I said, do you have your card? He said, no, but I'm about to get it. And I said, well, I got a little stroke with a lot of people. Maybe I could help you. He said, well, but if I help you one time, then every rodeo I'll go to, they will expect me to be a rodeo clown, and I'm not a clown. I'm a professional athlete. And that was 3 years ago, and he still don't have a card.
I was going to say, yeah.
But
I agree 100%.
Yeah, but you were working an amateur rodeo.
It was on the way to a pro rodeo. All right, we're moving right along. One of my things.
That no right to work law, huh?
Yeah. One of the things that I hear all the time, Rob, and I want your opinion on this. I'm kind of jumping on Hambone here, but
No, you're fine.
I love the bullfight deal. I get this all the time. You know, finding fighting bulls is tough. When a lot of people don't realize, when you buy the Mexican fighting bulls, you're buying a chance, and they're not cheap. You know, we went to Stevenson, California, and bought 25 Mexican fighting bulls. Well, once you go through the fighting bulls, once you go through the 25, out of the 25, there might be 9 that will move on. And some of the reason of that is because the younger generation throws a lot of fakes where they don't take those bulls in circles. So sometimes after you fake those bulls so many times, they just give up. So out of your 25 bulls, you got 8 bulls that can move on. So it's getting harder and harder, and financially, those bulls are super expensive. And here's my pet peeve that I'm getting to. So you try so hard to put these fighting bulls together, and when you get a good set of bulls that you can fight, and that will sell a show, because people want to see the moves. You always have somebody say, "Where's the big bulls?" By God, if they'd have the big bulls, well, the big bulls are kind of gone. You can't find a big set of bulls like you had. They're not there. I mean, people have tried to put together the big brindles, but they won't fight. They go to the corner. So what's your opinion on the big bulls versus the little bulls in today's bullfighting?
Well, I want to go more so with the old. I always liked the Mexican fighting bulls. I like the bull that brought it to me.
Yeah.
And the Mexican fighting bull just kept coming. The Borba family had the monsters of the Midway, but they owned that dairy, and those bulls were on corn silage, and they, those bulls, Borba's bulls outweighed everybody else's bulls by 200-300 pounds. They always had great big backs on them, and and they were strong, and they were kept in irrigated pastures, and they, Borba, they had a bunch of them. The old man liked it, and he had a good breeding program, Yeah, so the big bulls, you're not going to see them now like they did, but Harper had that J16, and J10. They were two good ones out of Iceman. Harry had that good bloodline off of Purple People Eater to get Purple People Eater Jr., Crooked Nose, 153, B47. He got a bunch, 190. There was a whole bunch of those bulls come out of that old strain of Harry's, and they were big, they were dangerous, and they were smart. There's a reason in Mexico they kill them when they fight them the first time. Those bulls aren't a dumb animal. Pretty soon they see your trick, they see your trick. Josh, they see my trick. They get smart in a hurry, and then that's where the games change. Those guys do pretty good on green, fresh bulls. But when it comes to those campaigners, they sure tend to spend a lot of time on the fence.
Yeah. But the one thing I think, though, because here's the trick to that. I went to a bullfight in Alabama and just watched it. And they had big, high-horn, cool-looking bulls. Well, most of them bayed up in the corner. They wouldn't really drive through. Those guys had to try to dig everything out they could. They'd make one round and then, throw their hands up and, then maybe take them to the barrel. And there just wasn't a lot of action in the whole deal. The next night they fought some younger Mexicans that really hooked up, and they jumped and threw back fakes on, and it was pretty exciting. So I'm always kind of at a crossroads. I love the thought of the old bulls, but also I like the young bulls that they can kind of show out on. And every Facebook argument in bullfighting comes from the big bulls versus the old bulls, but I think there's a balance there that shows the guys who can handle the big mean bulls. But it's just hard because there's not a lot of people that want to raise a Purple People Eater in today's society.
Right. So they gotta fight those good strong Mexicans, and obviously those guys got to start working at putting their pins together and making it work. And like when we used to get to the finals, you would have to try to match bulls to bulls. It wasn't just one stock contractor's whole pin of bulls when you got there, even with the big bulls.
That's right. I never even thought about that.
And so what they need to really start doing at your BFOs or whatever bullfights, so be it, the BFO, the UBF. But when you start getting to that finals, if one contractor doesn't have the eliminator pin but he's got three of them that belong there, and another guy, then you're going to have to, if they match up pretty even, then that's what you're going to have to fight. You're going to have two pins in the back to sort them with. But there's nothing worse than when it gets down to the point that you're trying to give away a world championship than to turn that contest into a drawing contest.
Right.
Yes. In anything. And bareback riding, bronc riding, steer wrestling.
If I'm going to go in there and I'm going to be scared, I want everybody scared. If we're going to go in there laughing, then I want us all to laugh. Let's all.
Yeah.
This is the fun thing. I promise you. Back in the day, you mentioned earlier, the night that Crooked Nose and them were all out, it was pretty quiet in that locker room. Yeah. Everybody was real serious about how they taped their ankles. Everybody was running it through their mind about the importance of that first move, because the first move sets everything up. If on that first move he gets me pushed out and gets me running wild, well, now he's controlled me. If I can freaking get him and stick him in the ground that first move, now, come on.
But could you stick Crooked Nose in the ground because he was such a cheater?
Crooked Nose, the best thing that I ever did to Crooked Nose, finally at Billings, Montana, I never drew him at the NFR. I drew him at Billings. I had him at Prescott. I had him everywhere else, but never at the NFR. Well, for a while there, I didn't have him for a couple of years, and I watched him. He would always make that one big run. He would always run down to the arena. He would always circle off that back wall to where he would come around like this, always with that big horn side to the inside of the arena, just like you were mentioning Hargo's video, right? And then he came down that pin. Everybody tried to beat him to that muley side, and he'd drop that shoulder, and he could reach across there and whack you with that horn. The best thing you could ever do was go to that muley, start to that muley side and throw that fake and go back the other way. I got him at Billings that one year. I'd watched him, and I said, you know what? I set my barrel man at the third barrel, and I went to the rope and shoot. I leaned up against the rope and shoot. Scott Walton.
Yep. Harry Bolts. They
used to work for Harry, now Copenhagen Skull. Scott screaming, Smets, you're up. It was Saturday night at Billings, Montana. And he's, you're up. And I said, let him go. They're going, you're up, get up here. I said, let him go.
I'm going to call for him here.
And then I called from him from the rope and shoot. And they're just screaming at me. So I start walking. I get about the third barrel, and I wave. I don't go any further than that. Crooked Nose blows out into the arena, and there's nobody there. And he kind of checks off and throws his head up like, what the hell? You know? Then I go, hey! Oh, shit, here he comes. 900 miles an hour. Well, he blowed by me, went to that corner. Well, when he went to that corner, as he come off that wall, here I was right there. I get me about 2 rounds to that horn side. He didn't handle himself too well that way because nobody goes that way. I get a couple of rounds. I get pushed out, get to the barrel. We thump the barrel a couple times. Here comes that whistle. Throw your hat in the air, win the go-around. Thank you very much.
This is what I would do with
game planning.
This is what I would do with Crooked Nose right here. Ready for this? Be right back.
He would leave. That's it. And what was kind of cool is, and I learned this a few years ago. Andy Burrell was commentating at BFO at the finals, and there was a one-horn bull, and I never put this in my head, never thought of it. He said, you're almost better off. You're better off to go to the horn side because they're not as flexible that way. Because when they get flies off or whatever, they're used to not having that horn on that side, so they've always reached more, and so they can actually, they can get you more on that inside. Is there any truth to that?
I think that's a BS statement, but what I think, well, my opinion on it is all those guys have, if they're going to try anything, they're going to try to beat him to that muley side. So that bull handles himself better going that way. If you did anything, the best thing to do would be if that muley side, I would hop that way to the muley side and hop fast to get him to thinking I was going and throw that fake and go back to that horn side. Because he's not used to handling himself well going to that horn side because nobody goes that way.
Yeah.
Whenever them guys try to beat him, that's why he's so flexible this way, because that's the way everybody tries to beat him. swatting flies is, yeah, I don't.
Well,
I'm not on the
yeah.
swat and fly deal. Swatting
I don't know.
bullfights, maybe.
Maybe I described it wrong, but I thought being more flexible the other way because he doesn't have that horn. But hey, I love the dirt. Yeah.
Did you go for a shot?
Did
you go have a shot or what?
I got to go have a Gold Buckle beer, the
Oh,
official
okay.
beer of RümpChät.
Okay.
Last question about Crooked Nose, and I know we've talked about a bunch, but like when you drew that bull, honestly, Rob, were you like shit, or did you? Because today we have like a Hugh Hefner is a pretty from Penthouse Fighting Bulls. He's not comparing him to Crooked Nose, but he's
a bad cat,
big mean son of a bitch. And at the BFO finals, Dylan Ottoman picked him in the draft and was like, "What that But did you ever say, "Man, today's the day I want Crooked Nose"? Because back then you guys fought him quite a bit throughout the year.
Yeah, we fought him throughout.
Did you ever say that's the one I want today? Be honest, Rob.
I had Crooked Nose at Prescott, Arizona, and told Harry Vold, "Don't fall out of your chair today, boss. I'm going over him."
And you did jump him.
And I jumped him on that day.
Flat off the ground or barrel?
Off the barrel, over the barrel. That's over the barrel by yourself, not with somebody setting it for you.
Oh, did your balls hit the horn? Because that would take some.
No. He come. I can remember when I was about 7-8 foot away from that barrel. As I'm getting there, he's standing there looking at me, and he went to shaking like, "What the?" And about the time I stepped on that barrel, he made a great big jump, and I jumped him from head to tail. I never touched him.
We've got to get the video. What I do, Prescott, and real quick, Prescott, Arizona. Outstanding, cool ass rodeo.
The world's oldest rodeo.
Town.
Where it all started.
It is badass. How long were you there?
I worked Prescott 10, 15 years.
Yeah,
I worked
still there.
I worked St. Paul for a year. I worked St. Paul for a bunch of years, and then got the opportunity to go to Prescott. In fact, my first year that I went to Prescott, I had been in St. Paul, Oregon. My good friend Arlie Bonaha from the Yavapai tribe.
He comes every year.
Arlie lives right up there on the res. Arlie had gotten hurt. They called me in St. Paul, Oregon, asked me to come down and come finish the rodeo. And they flew me in, picked me up at Phoenix and flew me in on this little Cessna. And I mean, the lightning was popping. I didn't think we were going to get in there that night. But we got there, fought bulls there, and then I worked Prescott till I retired.
It's a very cool place. It's awesome. Okay,
yeah, Jim Dewey Brown is now in charge of Prescott, which is a good.
Yep. JC Trujillo retired, and all the best to him and his family. But okay,
next chapter.
One question, and it's not about freestyling; it's about protection. Okay. And I don't want to put you on the spot. One guy that you would fight with, I don't know what I was going to say, 15, a bear with. Yeah, one guy that you would step in with 15 at the NFR, the baddest from Hal Burns to the Crooked Nose to Miles Hare. Okay, that's your guy.
Miles Hare.
I would agree with that.
You put me and Miles Hare together, and I'll match any two guys in the business.
But I want to say one thing about Miles Hare, though. Like, I always loved Miles Hare because when he would fight bulls at Houston, and they played Houston on like CBS when I was little, and Miles always looked like when he was in his bullfighting gear with his beard, he looked like he just got done changing oil in 9 semis. Like, he was not the clean little cute, whatever. Miles looked dirty, but it looked dirty tough. Like, Miles pulled it off better than most. Because I'm dirty, and everybody makes fun of me.
You give me Miles Hare and tell me you got somebody that's down in hell you want us to come out with, and we'll bring him back.
That's awesome.
I love Miles.
That statement right there, Rob, reminds me of a meme I saw, and it was someone asked Michael Jordan how bad would the Bulls beat, LeBron James and the Lakers today, and he goes, 2, 3, 4 points. Like, oh, it'd be that close. He goes, well, we're all in our 60s now.
Yeah.
You know, that's the same. That's the same. You know, and that is funny because first time I was around Miles was he was still fighting Houston.
Yeah,
and I was in my 20s. Like it was not that terrible long ago. Him and Rick Chapman,
Bumblebee. God bless.
they was still fighting Houston.
Yeah.
And Corey Wall had come in, but yeah, it was pretty insane. I was like, holy cow.
All right.
Actually, it would be two guys. It would be Miles Hare and it would be Jimmy Anderson. That would be my two choices. And whatever you send us after, we'll come out with.
What a world of difference too now. Now it's jerseys and caps and shorts like Rump's wearing now. I mean, the PBR, what started all that. Jimmy still wore his purple hat and his horns.
He wore his hat with the horns. Yeah. And that's what I love, Jungle Jimmy, because of the hat with the horns.
Somebody ought to break that out. Here's the challenge.
Jimmy Anderson's card said, "Danger is my business."
I saw that. Mike Servy's got one of his cards.
Yeah.
So transferring from PRCA, you started off as the glory days. You were the first Jersey guy, which I'm a Jersey guy now, and so in a way I'm kind of like Rob Smets, where I have the Rob Smets face paint and the jersey. But from a great career, even though you had a couple broken necks and normal bullfighter stuff, you
got a ring, dude.
Is that Miles?
that was Mama checking on us, making sure.
We'll wrap up here in a minute, but
going to the PBR. Talk about the early days of the PBR and the jersey, because the jersey is another thing on.
It was a shakeup.
The PBR started talking about doing it, and they had a company from back east, and it was a real funky looking jersey that they'd made. So Carla and I and a buddy of mine, Duncan Dickinson, and a guy named Ty from there in McLean, Texas, kind of drew it out, and then Duncan put it together. Teresa Underdown made a deal for me with CarQuest and ASC, and at that year's NFR in 2000, I let everybody go to the arena. All those guys went out before me, and I never put it on till the last minute. And then I pulled the shorts on and the jersey and cracked it out for CarQuest ASE at that NFR, and all the guys kind of looked at me like, what the heck? Well, it was a good deal, and it ended up being it was a really nice deal from CarQuest and ASE for that whole year. And then the PBR that whole year saw how good it was, and it's a nice clean look, and it's very advertising friendly, it's very, very sponsor friendly. And then Carhartt came on board, and then Dickies came on board, and now you've got U.S. Border Patrol. You've got all these different, Cooper tires for Flint, and it took off from there, and it was a good, clean look. And I got a lot of good years with the Seminole tribe of Florida, the Spittleback Ranch from up in Meeteetse, Wyoming, and able to make a little bit of money on the side other than just getting
absolutely. It's huge. And even at San Angelo here, I had, Family Power Sports, boats and ATVs and all that stuff. They sponsor Bullfighters, and we bought them in on a $28,000 Polaris, spotlights and everything, in a dark house. And they come in, and the drunk committee man driving them in, and they jump out and he spins out. But, that looked great on that, so we could sell it. But one thing we do, and if there's any committees out there listening, let these guys, because they, a lot of guys got, Gold Buckle Beer or Boot Barn or Cabin or whatever.
Yeah.
American hats.
Rockstar Sound.
Yeah. Put their logo on there too, because some rodeos, they'll just sell it to one company. Go, no, you can't. Well, that's, you can't do that to the guys, because you don't own, you're renting. If I hire Rob Smets, I'm renting you. I don't own you.
Right.
I'm not the Dallas Cowboys. I don't own the rights to your, to you. So that's what I implore you, because that is how you guys can make that extra ends meet. That makes it, a better living for you and your family.
Right. And that's what it's all about, because it's only for a short time. At one point in time, Sean Gleason popped off at me that one day, and he goes, Smets, You look like damn NASCAR, all them stickers all over you. And he goes, we need to do something about that. And I said, Gleason, I'm just about done. You just leave me alone. And once I'm done, you do whatever you want to do. We laugh about it, but he was good to me. The PBR was real good to us. The greatest venue a guy could want to work is the PBR.
Mm-hmm. And isn't that crazy to think about when you look back at your career? 1977, you're in Cow Palace. And you fast forward to the 2000, you're at the biggest coliseums in North America with the PBR.
I was blessed, man. I went from Hawaii to Florida, Alaska to Brazil, just about every state in the United States. I worked with Wick Pest, Skipper Voss, Jimmy Anderson, Miles Hare, Bobby Romer, Bob Donaldson, Dale Woodard, Quail Dobbs, John Taylor, Ted
Justin Rumford, 1 year Carney.
Rumford finally showed up before I was done. Tuckness. I mean, I went through the crazy thing about it is I was there when Donnie Gay and Denny Flynn were riding bulls still. I've been through them. I've been through Tough, Ty, Lane. I fought bulls 5 of the 7 times Lane got on Red Rock. I was fighting bulls. I was fighting bulls that night in Redding, California when he rode him the first time. I was there when Jim Sharp rode all 10 at the NFR, him and Norman Curry and Adriano. I've been blessed to have the best seat in the house day in and day out. It wasn't work. Rump, what? Josh, it's not work. When it's something that you love, it's not work.
One last question before we let you go.
You're taking care of your buddies. It don't get no better than that.
One last question before you go. If you could get in the time machine right now, when was the best year ever for Rob Smets?
Oh, that's a lot of years.
If you could say this year I fought bulls the best I ever had and had the most fun, what year was it?
Obviously, I won back-to-back worlds 1985 and 1986. It's pretty tough to beat 25, 26 years old.
Yeah.
In all aspects of life. In all aspects.
You know what I mean? The 25, 26, because of the strength and conditioning that I was in. But 94, 94, 95, 96, and having gone through the broken necks and the trials. But the best thing that ever happened to me, Rump, that we didn't get to talk about was 1998. I got saved.
Amen.
Yeah, talk about it.
And I asked Jesus Christ into my life, and things started turning around. Now, did it all turn around in a day? Hell no.
Yeah.
It's been a 23-year journey, But now it gives me an opportunity too, because I can go speak to some guys that I've been there, done that. I went to a jail here 2 years ago. They took me up to Kansas, and they took me to 3 different towns in 3 nights, and I spoke in the towns and went to the jails in the daytime. And the guys would sit there, and finally the one guy looks up at me and he goes, "You do know?" And I said, "Yeah, I know." I said, the only thing difference between me and you was you got caught.
Yeah.
Now, didn't you help Frank Newsom?
Frank Newsom called me at midnight as he was on his way out of Albuquerque.
Yep. I didn't know, because I only heard obviously second, third, fourth, fifth hand. But you did help him through a rough time.
We called Carla and I in Shamrock, Texas. He stayed with us for a while, and then I helped him get in. Then he went over to Randy Stahl's place in McLean, Texas, and Randy helped him a whole bunch.
Yep. And Frank is to me personally is up there with you.
Frank's been to the top of the mountain. He went down in a valley, and he loved the game so much he's come all the way back to the top of the mountain. Frank's the last of the old school.
Yeah,
he really is,
and
he really is.
He's still rocking. He's still rocking. He's still solid as there. I mean, as a bullfighter, I've watched him on TV. Man, Frank does not miss a step still to this day. But, I think Frank, he's getting to that age because
Well, Father Time's undefeated. We all know that. But,
you can't beat it. I got to fight him until I was 46, and that's when.
Oh my God! I got 6 more years to get back in shape.
That's when I broke my neck for the 3rd time. So
I do like that about it, Rob, because like in your story, you went through the ups and the downs, and that's one thing at RümpChät. You know, like we like to drink beer, and sometimes we say some bad words, but we love Jesus, and
absolutely,
we love bullfighting and rocking and rolling. So I think your story is just so cool, and the cool thing is your legacy lives on. Is I've had so many 16-year-old kids come up to me and be like, do you know Rob Smets? I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I got Rob Smets' phone right here, you know? So, like, even though you're retired and you've been through your career, which has been probably, of all the careers, no matter what, if you look at the buckles or nothing else, historic from just the timeline is the most historic bullfighting that I think that we will ever have in rodeo.
I mean, the walking with legends, like I said earlier, walked with legends. I mean, 3 generations of bullfighters and bull riders.
Yeah.
Right.
Really.
Like I said, the cool thing is I was blessed to play a game I loved. I ended up where I wanted to end up as far as was put in the PRCA Hall of Fame, the Bull Rider Hall of Fame. A couple years ago, got to go into the National Cowboy Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City. So
that's awesome.
So I got where I wanted. I mean, obviously, if you're going to play a game, you want to be able to say that you could play with the best. The rest of it, who's a GOAT or who's anything like that, let them argue about it. All I want is I'm in that group that when that circle's talked about, that I could tie my cleats on with them. That's all that's
Amen,
important.
Rob. That's so awesome.
You couldn't put it. Nobody could put it better, Rob. That's no true words have been spoken. That's good stuff. But we sure appreciate your time and for coming on RümpChät and telling some stories with us. It's just an honor.
I want to come back one time, but you got to bring me and Miles Hare together.
We will do it.
Let's do it. We got to get where we got to find a time where we can all be together, sitting around a table. Y'all can drink iced teas and Pepsis. Okay, let's do it. Let's stay in touch on that this year. NFR. Holy shit.
We can go up into one of them rooms there at the old South Point and let old Michael Gunn give us a room to go do one in. And
yeah,
well, we're open right now.
Yeah, we're shopping, but yeah,
we will do that for sure.
And that would be awesome.
I would love to hear Miles.
Well, I wasn't thinking about the nightly show. I was meaning if we could do one to work for this.
No, that's what we do.
We can go on the nightly show and go do it. You bet.
Well, we do one in the afternoon is when we do ours, and then Rump's got his watch party,
right,
and stuff like that. But even on that, you got to have him on the watch party.
I would love to have.
I'd love to. Keep me in mind. Hey, the other thing, what am I doing now? I work for the WCRA. I am the alliance manager. You had my boss, Mr. Bobby Modon, just the other day at Corpus Christi. And the coolest thing about the WCRA is it doesn't matter whether you go to jackpots, PRCA shows, open shows, or whatever amateur organization you're with, you can earn points at them all. And if you happen to win 3 of our major events in a row, bingo, there's $1 million.
$1 million. That's pretty amazing. I mean, the money in all of professional rodeo now, whether it's PRCA or WCRA. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
You should have stayed for Corpus. We had a really good time. Ask yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I was good, and it was good. It was Carla's birthday and Mother's Day weekend. I came.
Oh no, got to take care of Mama. Got to take care of Mama.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Give Carla a hug from us.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob, so much for your time, brother. And we look to hear for more. And to all of our listeners, go follow Rob on Facebook. Does awesome testimonials and reads the good book. And
7:15 a.m. Central Time daily. Rob Smets. It's on the pages, not the page that you have to like as asked to be on, but you can just like the page, and you don't have to worry about friend requests.
Yeah, I watched the replay because I'm feeding Gus at 7:15 a.m. My little boy. I watched the replay, but I encourage you all, if you like the good word and to learn some cool lessons, give Rob a follow. So anyway, Rob Smets, thank you, brother. We really appreciate you, amigo.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.